Is the town hall for the Crownsville Hospital Memorial Park Master Plan. My name's Mike Stroud. I'm the project manager for capital projects on the site. Welcome everybody. Thank you for coming. This is our 5th public event for the master plan, and we appreciate everyone coming and sharing your thoughts with us. Thank you to Baldwin Hall. We have a representative from Baldwin Hall here this evening. Thank you very much for allowing us to use your facility. So as many of you know, the draft master plan was published a few weeks ago. It's on the project website. We have a 45-day review period for everyone to give us their comments, and that will end on November 24th. So help us get the word out. Neighbors, friends, most of you all know about it because you're here, but if you can help us spread the word, that would be great. A couple of administrative items for the hall here. Exits in the unlikely event we have to leave quickly. The main exit is in the back, the way you came in, but we also have the 2 on the side. If you go through these doors, you'll find an exterior door right away. The restrooms are right here. You go through this door, and they're right straight ahead. We're going to have some opening remarks from the county executive. Then we're going to have a short presentation with some slides from Design Collective, the master plan consultant. And then we're going to have open public comments. It'll be an opportunity for you, for the public, to come up here to the podium. I'll have a timer for 2 minutes just to keep everyone even. So that'll be the last thing we do. We do need to conclude by 8 o'clock. We have to pack up the hall here and get it ready for folks who are using it later. So with that, I want to introduce the County Executive, Stuart Pittman. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Michael. Michael's the guy who's really coordinating all the technical aspects of this and has a huge job. So thank you for stepping up and letting this take over what was your job. This is really kind of weird and eerie that we are here in this building tonight, because one of the very first things that I remember doing when I had just announced that I was going to be a candidate for county executive, 7 years ago by now, was a meeting at Baldwin Hall. And there were pictures, and there was a panel of designers and planners and everybody up here. And it was about the plan to do a sports stadium at Crownsville Hospital. It was not Hospital Memorial Park. That's what we call it now. And they talked about having a shopping area and a hotel, and it was a pretty large commercial operation that would have taken the whole campus with many ball fields. And the opposition was for a lot of different reasons. Some people who lived nearby were worried about traffic, but I think one of the biggest was that it was not really honoring the legacy and the history of what had happened there. And it was clear to me from that meeting and since then that this is sacred ground in the geographic center of Anne Arundel County, beautiful green nature, and the institution there was created for the purpose of healing. And healing happened at times, but not at others. And very, very complicated history, actually an amazing study of institutional racism in America on steroids when you really, really got down to it. So it was a goal of mine from the beginning of our administration. My very first meeting with Governor Hogan, he sat me and my staff down right after I was elected, right after I took office, and said, well, okay, you weren't a guy I supported, but what can we do together? Where's the common ground here? And I said, Crownsville. The state has wanted to transfer it to the county in the past. The county leadership has said no at those times when the state has wanted to, or it's been the other way around at times. It never really lined up. And would you still be willing to transfer it to the county? Because they wanted to under my predecessor, and he didn't want it. He said, absolutely, that'd be great. But it took a really long time. It was part of the Maryland Department of Health facility, and they were doing another study of what to do with all their facilities. And then COVID came, and they were busy with that. And it wasn't until December of 22 that we finally got Crownsville Hospital property transferred to Anne Arundel County. And I felt pretty passionate about that, which was why I did my inauguration there under a tent, where you could look up at the main campus And that was a moving ceremony to me, because I knew that my second term, this would be one of the most important things that we did. So fast forward, and here we are back at this same location, again with pretty pictures, again with designers, again with a plan, and hopefully this one will be better received than the last one. I know it will, because I've talked to many of you about that. And I hope that you've gone online and you've looked at the master plan, every page of it, and looked through it. If you've not, you can. After tonight, you'll have a better sense of the why, I think, of what you see in there. I want to thank some people, though, who've been involved in the creation of this. And I will say that Cecily Bedwell from Design Collective, I actually interviewed for, I don't know if you've noticed, that I do this new podcast called Pittman and Friends. And one of the friends now is Cecily Bedwell, who I interviewed just a few days ago, and it'll be coming out in a couple of weeks on a Tuesday, asking her what it was like to come in fresh as a very experienced designer of parks and urban centers and all kinds of things that they design. For 27 years you've been doing that work. And she told me that this was really unique. She was told that, think about the most community engagement you've ever done on a project and double it. I think that was Michael's advice, and that's exactly what happened. And so part of that community engagement was many, many, many of you, and many who aren't here. I want to thank the advisory committee that was led by Chris Trumbauer on my staff, but was the umbrella advisory group that has been advising me and others, but all of the stakeholder committees that were part of that, I think some 52 people who participated. And then all of the stakeholders that were interviewed by Cecily's team during this was in addition to those committees, the attendees at all the town halls, the 200 people who made online comments, the folks at Bowie State University who during this process came to us and said, we have a long history of a relationship with Crownsville where our students studied what was going on there, went to the Maryland General Assembly and testified about, am I talking too fast for you? I'm good? Okay, I just realized I should talk slower when there's anybody interpreting. Okay, we're good. Bowie State University would love to be involved in this project in some way and get their students involved in the project because they've been involved for many years. And they're looking for a place to have some sort of a satellite expansion of what they do. And having an institutional player like that, especially with young, it's a historically black college for those who don't know. And we think that they're going to be a really good partner in this. But there are going to be lots of other partners as well. Obviously, it's a large place. I want to thank Friends of the Crownsville Hospital Cemetery and their fearless leader, Janice Hayes Williams, who did the work to find the names of the 1,700 people buried in the cemetery there. And they do the Say My Name ceremony every year. And right now, as we speak, they're constructing, right? I saw a picture of some of the bricks being laid of a memorial down there at that site. Okay, getting emotional, aren't we? Thank you. Thank you for that work. Let's see. I want to thank our Maryland General Assembly partners who, when we got the land transferred in that first year, made sure that we also got $30.5 million with it so that we could get started with this really important and expensive work. I want to thank Governor Moore, who's been a great partner on this all along, and I think will continue to be very, very supportive. I also want to thank Antonia Hilton, who's not here, who, like an angel, came in and published an incredible book that has been all over national news media. It's called Madness. I'm sure most of you have heard about it, and many of you have read it. We sent a copy to everybody on our advisory committees, and she's been in the county talking about that book. But we now understand much more about the history of the staff who worked there, the patients. She interviewed people who worked there, who had families that were there. So it's a much more human story than it's ever been because that book was published. So I'm really excited. Now when I go around Crownsville Hospital Memorial Park, we're calling it, I look at the locations and I look at what's in these drawings and can point and can say, okay, that's going to be the new entrance with the circle that's going to help with the traffic on General's Highway that will be the new gateway to Crownsville Hospital Memorial Park. That's the central campus, and that's where the museum is going to be. And Bowie State University was going to be upstairs, and we're going to have a healing center over here and a makerspace over here. And that's the amphitheater down there where we're going to have a stage in the grass bowl. You can see the grass bowl, and people are going to look up at the campus. And then you're going to see the quads between the buildings is these beautiful pictures make it look like a college campus where you want to hang out and just, play Frisbee or chill, and it's going to be beautiful. And then you go down the road and you go past where the old silos are, and that's going to be an agricultural area with community gardens. And you go a little further and you go down the path of reverence with the meanders like you meander when you're experiencing healing, mental health healing, and the history's told, and there's art, and then you get to the end of it, and there's the cemetery. And if you go the other way, you go to the Campanella building, which is going to be what it was created for, which is active recreation and healing through recreation. And there's going to be some ball fields down there, and there's going to be a pump track, whatever that is, with bicycles. And then there's the Meyer building that we thought, well, should we tear it down and make another big ball field, or should it be something where housing and healing takes place? And we decided, well, let's keep it there. It's perfect for transitional housing. And some of the organizations that are already at Crownsville Hospital Center are saying they need a place to move people for transitional housing as they heal, and a clinic there for veterans and for families. I mean, it's just really cool. So I'll stop there with all the cool stuff and let you explain it much better than me. But I feel as though these folks took the things that you said and the visions that you had and the dreams, and sometimes, sometimes when even we can't quite explain it, but we know it when we see it. Now we can see it, and hopefully the experience you'll have is that they got it, and which means now we have to build it, which means we have to come up with a lot of money. There will be a lot of outside money because this is such a magnet for people who believe in healing that it's attracting attention. Our federal partners have already given us earmarks, federal money, and there will be more of that, I know, and foundations will come in, and then we'll have private partners and nonprofit organizations that do healing and wellness and history, and it's going to be a magnificent attraction, I think, a park that really is about healing, and the healing that all of us are always trying to achieve. So thank you for coming tonight, and I hope you love this as much as I do.
I just wanted to make one quick note. Councilwoman from District 6, Lisa Rodvian, she had planned to come this evening. She has been to several of the public events, but she wasn't able to attend, but she wants to make it known that she will be tracking comments, watching the recording, that sort of thing. So, thank you. So with that, Cecily with Design Collective.
Thank you, Michael and Stuart, both taller than I am. And I'm going to share with you some work tonight, but you all, most of you have been here through the process. So I'm going to do it briefly because tonight's really the night that we hear back from you. We have been listening throughout this process, but we shared our concept plans at the last workshop. We've posted the report, but right now is the time for you to give us feedback and give us your opinions. What did we get right? What's missing? What do you have further thoughts on? And that's what we're here to do tonight, but also through the card that you received, there's an email address, and you can record your comments there in your own words. And the county is tracking all of those comments, so that's a great place to do it. But if you have any comments you want to leave on the boards, we'll also record those and what we hear tonight. So my job tonight is to walk you through the boards and just give you an idea of the overall plan. I'll try to do that quickly. As I mentioned, I'm not going to give you all the details. You can go online and read the full report, and we encourage you to do that. But first, before I get started, I just want to thank our partners in this. So definitely to the county for bringing us on and allowing us to do this incredible work that has really been, this is for us, we acknowledge and are humble to know that this is a once-in-a-lifetime project, that Crownsville is a special place. And we approach that with that attitude of making sure that we listen first and drew later, that this is a place that has a lens on it, and rightfully so, that this is a place that needs to be acknowledged for the past, but also look to the future and how can that be transformed. So joining us in this from Design Collective, not here tonight, but Matt D'Amico, Mackenzie Tortoise, who has really been right-hand person throughout this whole planning process, Brian Reitz, who is the landscape architect and had a lot of the hand in these drawings that you see, There are a number of people I'm not going to go over, but Dayanara, his right hand, is here as well, working with us, and Matthew Hawkins, who has served on, has attended the subcommittees and both the health and wellness, and now is on the equity subcommittee, so we can be tied into those conversations. RK&K is our partner in looking at the traffic analysis and the civil analysis and has been critical. Let's see, Marcel is here tonight with us and is working through some of the traffic analysis almost as we speak. EHT Traceries has been a great resource for us in looking at this historic context and looking through all the buildings. And CostCon and Dennis Carmichael are looking at costing and landscape architecture with us. So all important partners. I just wanted to make sure they're acknowledged as we move on. So next slide. So the project schedule, it's out on the boards, and you've walked through this with us through the start of our involvement, which started in October of last year. So we're now here almost a year, or a little more than a year. One thing that I just wanted to point out, that before we started drawing, we spent 4 months of doing analysis, of learning, of reading Antonia's amazing book. We even got a pre-release copy of that so we could get started. We knew it wouldn't come out until February. We needed to get our hands on that. So her publisher was kind enough to share a copy, an advanced copy with us. But EHT was doing their research, and we were listening through the workshops that we had. It wasn't really until 4.5 months into the process that we started drawing some of the ideas that you came to us with. And we really think of this as drawing your ideas, not our ideas, but really giving visuals to the thoughts that you all have had. And some of those thoughts are contradictory, right? Some of those thoughts are opposed to one another. Some people have very strong opinions about certain things that weren't in alignment with other people's thoughts, and that's okay. Our goal was never to create a perfect plan. It was to create a balanced plan and a vision to see this through the future. So just fast forward to now. We are meeting with you here at the end of October. We still have work to do, and that will culminate hopefully by the end of this year. But we are taking all your comments. We will revise this report and bring in as many of those other ideas, refinements to the plan, and then have the final plan. But as I think Stuart mentioned, our work may be seen as the easy work. I'm sure we've struggled through a lot of it, a lot of late nights, but it's not the hard work of this plan. The hard work is still to come through the funding and the financing and the continued momentum. Everyone here tonight plays a part in that, in making sure that the momentum and the foot on the gas stays firmly in place. Next slide. So through some of our research, and certainly informed by Bowie State's research, Antonia Hilton's, Maryland State Archives, and other sources, we put together a storyline. It was acknowledged that Crownsville isn't a place of one storyline. It's many interwoven, and we've tried to highlight some of the history in the boards that you saw opposite the sign-in table as you came in. Those are within the document. We hope that this is maybe something that every middle school student gets to learn about and then gets to come to Crownsville and experience in person. Next slide. EHT Traceries did an exhaustive historic inventory looking at all the buildings, but also all the structures and contributing items on site, looking into the Maryland State Archives, and their report is another lengthy report that's a supplement or complement to the work in our report that documents all the research that they did and acknowledges, the context in which this hospital came to be, which is a difficult context. So I won't go into that, but all of that history is embodied in their document as well as carried through into our report. Next slide. As I mentioned, RK&K is on board. In addition to the utility analysis, they also looked at the natural resource inventory on site. We know that there are over 1,600 specimen trees on site. We know that there are streams and waterways and beautiful topography that surround this campus, and that helped inform some of our plan decisions as we located various items like trails and connections to the cemetery and the like. Next slide. The utility analysis, very critical. As most people know who are in this room, Crownsville operated as a campus, if you will say, plantation at times. It did operate almost as its own self-autonomous community. So it had wastewater, it had water, it had everything, and it had a power plant. All the utilities were there on site, and a lot of that infrastructure is really old and not working very well. So it was critical to understand, what did the county inherit underground as well as above ground when they inherited this campus from the state? Unfortunate maybe is that the underground utilities aren't in great shape, so they will need to be replaced. Maybe fortunate is that the wastewater treatment plant and ponds and spray fields aren't in good shape either, but that gives us an opportunity to replace them with other better things. So that was critical to our understanding, and their work continues on that. Next slide. Traffic analysis. So a couple of things with the traffic analysis. That work isn't done yet, most critically because we needed to understand the impacts of the Renaissance Festival, and that was recorded, back in, what's the first date? September? At the end of September, early October. So we are also, Arcane K is now looking at what the impact will be of the proposed new uses at Crownsville, and that is informed by the added impact of the Renaissance Festival. We knew we couldn't do that work until we understood, and they had a chance to observe all of that firsthand. So that's ongoing, but their initial analysis was pretty critical to some of our decisions. In particular, Stuart mentioned the north entry and resolving that conflict at Crownsville Road, Generals Highway, and Fairfield Loop Road. They all come together, and a lot of traffic already backs up. All right, next slide. So there's extensive information that we got from the community workshops, both from the introductory, the affected communities, which was added in late summer. And then we came back to you all with the concepts, the first round of concepts. You all gave us a lot of input, and then we revised them. What you see in the report is the revision that was influenced by the recommendations and comments that you all gave us at that workshop, but also through the comment portal on the county's website. Next slide. We also, as Stuart mentioned, I think over 52 individuals were on the committees. We actually sat in on all those committee meetings, and not myself always, sometimes Mackenzie, sometimes Matthew Hawkins, and others, Matt D'Amico, and had visioning sessions with the Rec and Parks. But there was a lot of input and discussion, not just the recommendations that came out, but we got to hear the back and forth and some of the decisions that will be made in the future in terms of renaming buildings. There was a lot of conflicting opinions about that, and there will continue to be. It was good for us to have a front seat to understand and hear those discussions. Next slide. What came out of this is really collectively, not us, but again, collectively, is that Crownsville really needs to be a place of healing. It needs to be a place that focuses on mental and physical health and well-being, a place that's intentional and equitable in providing access. So we know and have learned, we're not doing things as we did in the past. We want this to be a place where everyone is welcome, a place that's truthful about the past. So no one at this point wants to conceal anything about what happened at Crownsville. The reverse is true. We want to make sure that it's known and that we never go back because we're remembering and we're reflecting on that history. There were, cases and stories of great healing and caretaking that happened on the campus. Going back further, a really difficult past, and we all need to remember what this ground was. We're not replacing the history that happened here. We are building forward to a better future. A place that celebrates and protects the natural beauty and that respects and protects the built environment. Just a note on that, there were comments that we received already from folks online about having this, the whole campus or part of the campus be on the National Registry. The county is open to exploring that. We're looking to EHT traceries and going to be getting some input from them on the pros and cons of that. What are the benefits? What are the constraints that might be added? And then we'll come back with some suggestions once we've talked that through and fully informed about what those choices may mean for Crownsville's future. And a place that cultivates educational opportunities. Certainly Bowie State is critical for that. Next slide. So the overall plan, we looked at, just to get our minds around this and also to lock in different areas, we did look at segmenting the plan into 10 districts. And those are the campus core, the North Campus, the Woods, the South Campus, and various other areas, because this campus is so large. It's over 500 acres, so it's good to start thinking about the smaller chunks and what the character of each of those areas is, and what then for us as designers, what makes sense to be grouped in what areas, what doesn't make sense or feels out of place. Just one example is there's a field currently up by the Winter Road building, up in the north area. It's still used for soccer practices, but could that be better used because it is next to some of the nonprofit treatment, and they indicated some conflicts with their patients and their inability to take patients outside during the times those fields are used. Does it make more sense to create a recreation-focused district around the Campanella building where there are already ball fields and there's easy access to Crownsville Road? So those are the types of things that by putting this plan into districts allowed us to think about what should be adjacent to what is not a good use next to another use. Next slide. Building recommendations list. This is preliminary, so I know we're going to get a lot of opinions on this. But we took a stab at taking into consideration the core buildings near the admin complex are already within a historic easement. Those have to be preserved and hopefully renovated and adaptively reused. So we know we're pretty clear on that. Some have uses that could go in as soon as money is available, but there's a lot of space in those buildings. Maybe there isn't a use today. If there's not a use today, we have to do a better job of it's called mothballing. That just means stabilizing the structures so that they don't further deteriorate. So you'll see some of those recommendations. You'll also see recommendations for structures that will continue in their current use because they're already occupied. We have nonprofits already in the Hope House, in the central kitchen, which will then be the food bank in another location, in the Winter Road building is the focus of the nonprofit center, and Gaudenzia are all operating in buildings. Those are going to continue to operate in those buildings. Other buildings are slated for demolition because, quite frankly, a lot of buildings are falling down, and there would be no possible way of restoring every single structure, nor is every single structure what they call a contributing structure. There are trailers, much like you would see as overflow for schools. They don't lend anything to the history. They're more modern insertions. They don't tie back into the history of Crownsville Hospital. So those are going. But other things like the silo on the barn, horrible shape, not gonna lie, really bad shape, could fall down. We would look to try to stabilize that, not so that it can be used as a grain storage vessel anymore, but so it can signify and let people understand the history of agriculture and how patients did farming at Crownsville. So I think that some of those elements are really necessary to have saved on campus. Next slide. We are looking at the vehicular circulation. I already mentioned trying to fix that area of conflict, of vehicular conflict up at the north end of the campus, and then also the pedestrian and bicycle. So there are a lot of trails shown here. Just to mention the South Shore Trail, we did look at bringing it through campus. Even since the report was written, we're understanding that maybe that logistically won't work. So we may have to find a different route for that. So just being aware that things are still in flux and they will continue to be in flux. But we probably do need to look at a different location for the South Shore Trail. We still will want to tie into the campus, into Crownsville, for people riding their bikes to come in and connect to Bacon Ridge or to the South Trails. The South Trails, there's already a volunteer group that wants to build those natural surface trails throughout the woods, and that's going to proceed, probably one of the first things that will be implemented to get access to those. And then other trails in the northern woods, we're really looking at more, if that's the active in the south, the north is passive. It's the area for reflection. It's the place to go and have meditative time to take in the healing power of nature. So different types of trails in different locations. I'll talk a little bit more about the path of reverence in a moment. Next slide. So here you see the roundabout that we're looking at. This design will be revised, and there will have to be a whole study on the roundabout and the traffic analysis that goes with it that may be beyond our scope. That will be a project in itself. But what the goals will be is what we've intended and written here is to help with the conflicts. Also to give a new entry, a new statement, a way into Crownsville that is suitable to the historic nature of it and welcome people in. It will be a new gateway, a new arrival sequence to campus. Next slide. The campus core. This is, I think, where Stuart had his inauguration. This area is a natural bowl. It's also next to those historic core buildings. And we know from talking with people who work there and patients that were here that there was a parade route that led to this natural bowl. It's an area where there was a grove of trees where patients would come out and sit amongst those trees and staff would be able to be outside. We've tried to incorporate those elements as we've heard the stories from the past. But that natural bowl could be a new main event space where you could spill out from the museum and have an amphitheater-like soft amphitheater, not hard, intensive amphitheater here in the natural bowl. Okay, next slide. We looked at many buildings. I'm not going to go into all the buildings that we studied, but just to highlight a couple, talk about the administration complex that incorporates really 6 different buildings. We studied 3 of those to be adaptively reused for the museum landing point. When I say landing point, that's because we heard it very clearly that people didn't want the whole experience of the museum confined within a building, that the whole site should be a museum, that you should learn about things as you move through the farm, as you move on your way to the cemetery, as you move through the woods. But we do need a spot where you come in, buy your tickets, that 5th grade students, wait in line to be next to go into the museum. So that area is shown in the 2 buildings, the admin building and the building behind it. We may need to expand that space. We don't know. That will get informed by a museum study, but we also thought, hey, it would be a good idea to have Bowie State upstairs and have their educational space be able to be adjacent to and use the facilities and kind of co-locate with that museum. That seemed like a nice synergy between the 2 uses, as well as artist studios potentially and makerspace. Next slide. The East Campus is the area that's a little bit removed. It's on the east side of Crownsville Road. You actually have to cross from the main campus over Crownsville Road to this. This is where we know that the Arundel County Food Bank wants to relocate, build a new facility that has taller space, a modern loading dock and facilities. So that's what they're looking at. Hope House exists there, and they may want to rehab the 2 buildings adjacent to them, which were employee apartments, as transitional housing. So that would be a great use for them. They really need the space. They need people to be able to move from their treatment plan into more independence, but not as a on-off switch, as a transition. So that would be useful there. There are also some, the staff cottages, which are in bad shape. There has been some input to save one of those, and if we can have save one of those, I think that would be a good remembrance of how staff came and lived on the campus overall. Next slide. The recreation, I did talk about this, but this is near the Campanella building, which you see kind of center of the image. We looked at this as being the area, the anchor for the recreation. The ball fields on the lower right are existing. Maybe they could be retrofitted to be multi-use, but in any event, not just practice for soccer, but other sports. And then a new track and field. We heard loud and clear that the track should be also for therapeutic purposes, not just for recreation, but to actually be used for therapy as well. Think about patients who've had mobility issues and need a soft surface and consistent surface, level surface to walk on. That could be a core of that area, along with the Campanella building renovated to be what it used to be, a place of recreation and performing arts. And I hear chess tournaments as well happen there. So that could be a real anchor point of that. Next slide. South Campus. This is the area that links into the South Woods where the cottages are, the patient cottages are. There's a collection of 6 buildings. They sit up on more or less a hillside. They've been used for various uses since the Crownsville Hospital patients were there, mostly rehabilitation space. We think they could be used for day camps, overnight camps where, say, scouts or potentially, I think I heard baseball camps could come in and use those facilities. They're nicely linked to that whole active Southern Trail network, so that would make a lot of sense and would put to use those buildings. The Meyer building at the top, great. It's the 1-story, largest footprint building that we have on campus. We're looking at that for both the Veterans and Family Clinic as well as transitional housing and affordable housing. All those separate uses could be in that building because there are 3 entry points, and that building could be easily renovated. I say easily, that may be a misnomer, but compared to the other buildings on campus, this one is in better shape and could be reused for those 3 purposes. Next slide. The Meyer building, so here's the visual on that. I'll just point out that the purple area would be the Veterans and Family Clinic. There would be transitional housing on one or both wings and affordable housing. And we did a study just to say, okay, we know that 4 patients were in a room together. We're probably not going to put that many patients in rooms in the future. So let's look at that for 2 patient rooms. And if it was switched to apartments, how could that fit within the building? Preliminary studies, but we did go through the exercise to really see, does this work for the uses that we've heard people wanting it to? And the answer is yes, so that's good. Next slide. The historic farmstead, a lot of good ideas here. There's a huge demand for community gardens within the county. So we have supplied quite a bit of community garden space here. But we see that silo that I mentioned stabilized. The barn itself that's attached, dairy barn, is not viable. It's crumbling, it's falling apart, the roof's caved in, the walls are falling down. So we can't save that building, we don't think. But in its place could be a new community garden center where people learn about horticulture, where they learn about growing fresh vegetables, where people could come together and have a dinner of the harvest dinner afterwards. So that could be a great educational space, as well as around the other silo and this large, beautiful tree that's there. There can be a learning circle and other opportunities. So we see a lot of activity around that, as well as expressing the history of what happened with the patients here. Next slide. The West Park Meadow, this is where we move further from the farm down Farm Road to the cemetery. So you can, if you can see, if you can't see, it's in the book and in the report and on the boards. The new memorial that we were talking about is located at the end of Farm Road. It would be inscribed with the 1,700 plus patients whose names have been researched and found, not through our efforts, through other volunteer efforts. But that whole meadow area could be reclaimed from the wastewater treatment plant and ponds. Right now it's not accessible because literally, they're spraying stuff on those fields and you can't use those fields. If we remove that use and hook up to public sewer, then those fields can be used. And I'll talk a little bit more about our vision for that. So next slide. The West Park Forest, this is the northern forest part that's shown in this slide. And we envision this as a place that is for natural healing, right? You can come and walk through that, not all, but some routes would be accessible, so people who have mobility impairments can enjoy the woods as well. Next slide. And then the Path of Reverence. This is really transformed Farm Road. So we're re-envisioning Farm Road to be what it needs to be, is a pathway to the cemetery, a way to move through and along. And as Stuart mentioned, our idea behind this, and really Dennis Carmichael's idea, was that the path to mental health and wellness isn't a linear route. You may deviate. You may need time to sit and reflect. You may need time to take in nature. So all of those things happen along this route. We also see that, and I think it might be on the next slide, I think I did include this, right. So you can see that interwoven along this trail might be informational, educational plaques where you learn about the history, where you learn about environment and sustainability, where you learn about health and wellness. Kind of I don't want to say choose your own adventure, but if you can think of it that way, that as a 5th grader, you'd come here and learn about nature and sustainability. As an 8th grader, you might come back and learn about the hard history of Crownsville and treatments that happened here. So there could be different routes that you take depending on your visit. And we hope that people would come back for many, many visits. Next slide. So really that's it. I know that's like a brief overview, but we want to leave time for comments. So with that, Michael, I'll turn it back over to you. I don't know if you want to mention that somewhere.
If you want to come up and ask your question, okay. So we're going to open the open comment section. I'm going to give two minutes each. I'll have a timer. When the timer's winding down, if you can kind of wrap up your comments, that would be great. That gives everybody equal time. When you come up, if you don't mind, please state your name and your connection to Crownsville. If you don't have one, if you're just a county resident, that's fine too. But if you live adjacent or you work there as a staff member or something along those lines, we really want to hear that. So with that, we'll get started. There wasn't a sign-in sheet similar to the budget town hall, so folks can come up one at a time, and we'll set a timer for. Sure.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Some of you know me. My name is Larry Armitage. I'm 91 years of age. I live down the road here in Arundel on the 7th. I lived there for 54 years. My main concern with this is the entrance to the park. Now, if you go off General's Highway into Crownsville, the cemetery or the park, the traffic is unbelievable in the evening time there. My concern is that they should make a road from 87 into the other side of the park. That way it'll cut down on the traffic. Now, I don't know whether anyone has experienced the traffic there at peak times here, but General Highway and the roads adjacent to it are blocked. Between 4 o'clock in the afternoon and about 5:30, the traffic's unbelievable. And so if you make a road off 87 into that park, it'll cut down, I believe, on the traffic. Another thing I'd like to say is that it's a big area, a lot of ground there. And I think they should make a place for campers, people with tents or camps. If they can camp and spend 2 or 3 days, even a weekend there. That's recreation, and people will come. Another concern of mine is the fee for going in there. Are they going to charge $6 like they do at Downstate Park? Are they going to make it $10? That's the thing, the fee to go in there and the fee to stay there. Now, I think they should have security. If they're going to do that, and they have a state park, they should have security there. The county can pay for security, maybe off-duty policemen or whatever, I don't care. But they should have security because nowadays, as you know, there's a lot of vandalism. And if it's a new park, you will have vandals. I know it and you know it. I've been down here 54 years and I've seen it, and things are getting worse now than what they were when I moved in. So they're my main concern. A road from 87 in there to cut down on traffic, and also watch out for vandals, or they should have security. And that's it. Thank you very much for listening to me.
If folks want to, we can also kind of line up on the side here. So we do have sort of an impromptu queue. That would be helpful, but.
Good evening. I'm Philip Klein. I'm with the Friends of Crownsville Patient Cemetery, and I do have some comments about Farm Road. The particular area, there are events out there at the cemetery, not only with the Friends group, but also with the Scenic River Trust, with the hiking area out there. And cutting off Farm Road with no vehicular traffic will be a very bad thing to deal with. There are a lot of people who can't walk that far and need to get to the property with that. So that's something I think should be reconsidered, not eliminating the road itself out there.
Good evening. My name is Toni Pierce, and I'm the state liaison for the American Descendants of Slavery Maryland chapter. It is my duty and responsibility to advocate for my people and give voice to our suffering, past and present, throughout the state, and that is what I plan to do with my feedback this evening. So thank you for the opportunity to speak. My comment is grounded in the 2 guiding principles listed in section 4.2 of the master plan under the vision and guiding principle subsection, which states Crownsville Hospital Memorial Park will be 1, a place that is intentional and equitable in providing access, and 2, a place that is truthful about the past. In order for the Memorial Park to be a place that is intentional and equitable, Anne Arundel County must target its remedies to the specific group that was re-enslaved and mistreated while infirmed as patients or employed as staff at Crownsville Hospital. Those people were American descendants of slavery. The county should commission local and state level historians, artists, sculptors, painters, curators, architects, etc., who descend from American chattel slaves to execute the art and sculptor plan and the museum interpretive plan described under section 4.3 of the master plan. The exhibits and works of these people should be displayed prominently in central and non-central locations throughout the park. This way, the past can never be forgotten nor hidden, and Anne Arundel County will always be able to hold itself accountable for what happened to my people at Crownsville State Hospital. Lastly, intentionality and equity should also take the form of issuing government contracts and hiring employees who are American descendants of slavery who reside here in Anne Arundel County and throughout the state, and to work at all levels of the park, from construction to groundskeeping and maintenance to executive decision-making and management. These contracts and hiring practices should be proportionate to the number of victims that suffered and were mistreated at the hospital. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. How you guys doing? Great. My name is Miss Sandy. I'm a member of the ADOS Advocacy Foundation. I'm also with the Policy and Research Committee for our Maryland chapter. President Lyndon B. Johnson, in his address to the nation on June 27th of 1967, stated with strong conviction, "The American Negro has been afflicted by the hatred of white men and the indifference of white men. The only genuine long-range solution for us, for what has happened, lies in an attack mounted at every level upon the conditions that breed despair and violence. All of us know what those conditions are. They're ignorance, discrimination, slums, poverty, disease, and not enough jobs. We should attack these conditions, not because we're frightened of the conflict that could occur, but because we're fired up by our conscience. We should attack them because there is simply no way to achieve a decent and orderly society in America. This haunting truth still resonates today as we confront the systemic injustices that have been plagued by Americans who descend from slavery, ADOS. Now, recent reports have suggested from the Federal Reserve, not suggested, but they are actually on the website, that there is a gap that exists. It's a stark gap that illustrates the deep disparities between black and white households. Today, the median wealth of the white household is nearly 8 times that of the black household. This is not merely a statistic, it's a reflection of decades, if not centuries, of systemic disenfranchisement, exclusion, and economic marginalization. In the report, What We Got Wrong About Closing the Racial Wealth Gap, reports from the Du Bois Cook Center on Social Equity, we learned that closing this gap requires more than merely paying a debt that's owed to ADOS. It demands structural change and protections. It requires us to confront the historical injustices that created these disparities, including the very real impacts of policies enacted by institutions that have long excluded ADOS from opportunities for better health, let alone any sort of wealth accumulation. Antonio Hilton's Mr. Pittman talked about that earlier. She talked about the compelling work in her book, Madness, and she shedded light on the psychological tolls of Jim Crow-era inequalities, revealing how they manifest in the mental health of our communities. The emotional scars of discrimination, disenfranchisement, and divestment cannot be overlooked. These systemic barriers not only hinder economic progress, but also fracture and effectively destroying the well-being of entire communities. Finally, we must also visit the Kerner Commission report, which was written in 1968, which laid bare the realities that our nation was moving towards two societies, one black and one white, separate and unequal. The report called for a fundamental change in policies to ensure equity and opportunities for all Americans. White America buried this report. In light of this, it is vital that the reference to the Arundel County Crownsville Memorial Hospital master plan shares control of everything Crownsville in its implementation. All decision, power-making, resources, contracts, opportunities for ADOS lineage-based interests must be honored going forward. This means ensuring equity, access to economic opportunities, supporting ADOS-owned contractors and businesses, and creating pathways for wealth creation that have historically been denied with the ensuing completion of this project and its successes in the future. We call on local and state leaders to acknowledge this legacy of harm and to commit to actionable, equally shared power during this transformation of the legacy of Crownsville. Let us ensure that the next chapter of our nation's history is not written in exclusion, but in justice and repair. Together, we can build a future where every American, specifically those who built this country and their lineage, has a fair shot to be an American. It takes longer to heal a wound than to inflict a wound. Dr. Yvette Carnell, president of the ADOS Advocacy Foundation, thank you so much.
I do want to note, it is hard to see the timer. It is kind of off to your side. So Hannah Dyer from the county executive staff, she's going to have a notice kind of more front and center to conclude comments. So next commenter, please. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jill Bennett, and I'm a prior Anne Arundel County resident. I also had a business in Anne Arundel County for 14 years, and I'm a mother of 5, and I'm here for healing through theater and arts. I started a nonprofit a couple years ago, and we just finished our first fundraiser. The name of my company is called Bennett's Adventures and Events. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. We offer seasonally themed events and attractions and educational programs geared toward theater and the arts. These programs include workshops, seminars on theatrical arts, visual arts, special effects, music, sound, lighting, and similar arts and entertainment technologies. We also support arts and entertainment through organizations and scholarships through donations. I just want to say that with anyone that's struggling with addiction and recovery, the number one thing that they tell you to do is to get involved in hobbies. And that includes theater, arts, music. And being a mom of 5, one thing that I noticed in schools these days is that the music programs aren't what they used to be. Kids aren't getting music classes like they used to have. And that's one thing I noticed at the school that my kids go to. That's one of the reasons I started this nonprofit. Because I want to give back, not just to the students in the community, but to the schools. And with our first fundraiser that we just did, we actually teamed up with a bunch of residents from an addiction recovery center. And a lot of those people want to start and get back to work. And we hired them, and we had a great turnout with people that were able to get a job that prior to this weren't able to get a job. We also have a ton of underprivileged children from Baltimore City that come to our shows. And there's also other programs for people in the community. So The thing about our events and workshops and things, it's going to strengthen family bonds. It's going to create lasting memories for anybody that's in addiction, recovery, or struggling. So hopefully you'll consider me, and if anyone has any questions, please feel free to reach out. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. My name is Faye Belt. I worked at Crownsville with the state for 32 years. And I am with the Crownsville Caretakers United, and we are elated with all the stories that we told, 150 plus us, that was happening at Crownsville for healing, because they used our stories. And as I come here tonight, I'm speaking on behalf of the bike trail and the trail that's coming on Crownsville Road between 1610 and 1600, which is my family properties, and also through the school that's across the street from us, which is Indian Creek. I spoke with several people that are in charge, and I thank you for working with us in changing the road that's going through, because we have issues with that property that's there. My mom is 91, and my next door neighbor also is Mr. Dorsey, who's, you don't mind me saying, that is from a retired, oh, my mind hit a wall. From the military. So we are, and have another neighbor who is also retiring, so we have them suffering with PTSD. So we had talked to many people who are bringing this road through, and we thank you, Cecily and Mr. Stewart, for working with us as we change the future of Crownsville. And let me say this to you in the last 40-something seconds. What I see, and I worked there and grew up there, let me say this to you. What happened in the past is a new future, and they're right on target as far as we are concerned. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Deborah Weller, and I live in the area. And first I want to say thank you for the way this project has been done with respect to the level of transparency and incorporating public input. It's a refreshing change. My main comment here is related to traffic, and it appears, and I want to emphasize appears, that the traffic study does not include an analysis of the impacts of backups on Route 97, 50, and Route 3. When you have these backups, traffic diverts onto General's Highway, Millersville Road, Waterbury, and those roads back up. So I think it's very important that you don't just look at a limited stretch. Traffic should be looking at the traffic shed. Just like you do watershed analysis, you should be looking at the surrounding roads and the impact. I think if I'm looking at it correctly, the traffic study is limited, and this has been an ongoing problem with all the traffic studies. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Debbie Young. I'm a community resident, county resident, and I've been coming to these meetings from the beginning, so I'd like to start by saying how much I appreciate the work and commitment that's gone into putting the design in front of us tonight. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of one specific element currently reflected in the project. I'd like to see the walking track continue to be supported as we move forward from the design to implementation. Many may not realize that there is an incredible need for a safe, flat, even, well-lit place to walk or jog in our community. I don't think some people realize that the high school tracks are not accessible. They can't be used during school hours or during school team practices, and they are frequently rented out on the weekends by outside groups. On the rare Sunday, they may be available, and that's when you'll see a wide variety of community members walking or jogging or doing their therapy exercises. Having a track at this location would allow community members to walk and get outdoors in a safe environment at the times and days that work for their schedules, before work or in the evenings. Retirees or remote workers could go in the middle of the day. Families could use it on Saturdays as well as all day on Sundays. While I think trails are wonderful, and I'll certainly use them with my husband, most women simply won't head off into the woods on their own. A person walking alone feels much safer walking around a track where others are in sight. Some of the people I see who walk a track use assisted devices. Many have just had a knee or hip replacement, or they're trying to delay or prevent a surgery. The flat, even surface of a track is their best option for a safe place to walk. This track will allow people of all different paces to be able to see each other while they get some exercise. I frequently have seen caregivers or personal aides bring special needs adults or youth to a track where some will walk, some will run, and others will sit. Whether it's husbands and wives who arrive together but walk at different speeds, or a mom pushing a baby in a stroller with her toddler on foot, or friends with mixed fitness levels who meet up to encourage each other, many community members can enjoy time exercising outdoors together because they can keep each other in sight, or they can come pack around and get their water bottle or rest. A track at this location will be much needed to assist fitness and wellness for county residents. I hope you'll keep it in the plans. Thank you.
All right, good evening, everybody. I'm Bob Vargas here, brought two of my most favorite people in the world with me tonight. I appreciate that this project has such a diversity, equity, and inclusion focus, also with a focus on healing. A big part of that, obviously, is how we bring the community together, right? So we were a little late tonight. Why were we late tonight, boys?
Because we had soccer practice on the hospital grounds.
That's right. We have been practicing with Arundel Soccer Association. I'm a coach of their team. We've been there for 7 years. I know that other folks have been practicing there and using these grounds as part of how we bring community together for quite some time ahead of that. Just wanted to bring this forward to you tonight to share with you, my boys, and our focus. We really deeply appreciate how athletics, and youth athletics specifically, are part of how we're looking to bring this community together to heal. I mean, our team has an amazing, diverse group of folks that are with us there, and we celebrate the grounds every time we are there, and are just wildly excited about the plans that we have coming forward, and appreciate that you all and your team have put a lot of steady focus on this, and that most importantly, that this is really focused on healing and bringing people together and looking at that from multiple lenses, including athletics. We are a resident that's been here on the grounds for quite some time and look forward to continue doing that. And I'll echo the comments from the previous person. The walking track is a great idea. Thank you for your time tonight.
Good evening. My name's Tyler Larkin. I'm here on behalf of our head of school of Indian Creek, Booth Kyle. He cannot be here. Very simply, we just wanted to, as neighbors of the Crownsville Hospital, we wanted to give our support of the plan. Many of our leadership have looked at the master plan, and a lot of the core values that are brought forth in the master plan are those that touch our school as well. Kind of full circle, when our high school was first founded roughly 20 years ago, we were able to use a facility in the hospital to launch our first high school class. We've been members of the Crownsville community for 51 years, with a campus down the road in Arundel as well. And as I said, some of the core values that have been put forth, and I jotted a few down with Mr. Pittman's speech here: the wellness aspect, education, community, outdoors, sustainability, makerspace. That all rings very true to what we do at Indian Creek, and we wanted to make known that any partnership, any support you need from Indian Creek and the Crownsville community, you have it from our school and our head of school and our leadership. Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Candace Grant, and I'm a member of the American Descendants of Slavery, ADOS, Maryland chapter. I'm here today to reiterate the importance of recognizing Crownsville's painful history while creating a safe space for the ADOS community members and those visiting. The draft states one of the Memorial Park's intentions is to promote mental health and provide resources to undeserved communities. I hope to hear plans for stringent security measures, as well as a smoke-free zone declaration. I hope full names will be displayed, spelled correctly, and given the respect today that was missing not so long ago from this institution and other racist ones in Maryland like it. I hope these intentions are sincere and based on equity and justice. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Laura Kelly Amin, and I'm a community member. I want to commend the design team the county parks and rec and the county leadership on this plan. I am hard-pressed to think of anything I would disagree with about it. It's spectacular. I'm also here primarily as a board member of the Annapolis Striders, which is the oldest running organization in the county. We serve people ages 5 to 85, and we are more than a bit excited about the trails and the track. The track in particular would offer recreational runners of all ages the opportunity to access a facility throughout the day, as someone else pointed out this evening. And some of our most popular programs are really focused on health and wellness, both physical and mental, and helping people with little to no running experience improve their overall health and wellness within a supportive community. It's very important to the success of people at all fitness levels who are new to running to have access to easily measurable, well-lit, flat, even surfaces, and regular, predictable times for workouts. It makes a difference in whether or not they stick with it. Additionally, tracks with multiple lanes provide space for walking, jogging, running, therapy, and training as people progress through different levels of mastery. No one gets left behind on an oval. I urge you to make the community track a top priority in the active recreation part of the campus, and I hope that we can partner with the county in making that possible. We're eager to collaborate on programs and fundraising, and I thank you for all your good work.
Good evening. My name is Glenn Wright. I'm a resident down the road here for about 30 years now. And to compliment the authors of this plan, it's an excellent plan, lots of nice, pretty pictures and great intentions. But as the lady said before, the hard work is about to begin, and it's the things that aren't on this plan that concerns me. If you look at the map here, the entire southern section is being left fairly wild and is wide open for possible exploitation, for commercialization. I heard the words low-income housing, affordable housing used. Typically, affordable housing might consist 10 to 20% of the housing in a general area. That could open this whole southern section up for development for every 2 affordable housing units, for 8 more commercial units to be built. Now, we all know how the traffic around here has developed over the last many years. Nobody here wants to see Generals Highway develop into Route 2 through Savannah Park, Route 3 through Crofton, or even Riva Road through Parole. Okay, those have been totally developed out of control with strip malls and everything else here. Now, Mr. Pittman, I'm going to direct this to you. The question is, there are no plans for any of that on this map. What is going to happen to prevent that type of exploitation of these lands for commercial development 10 years, 20 years down the road? And like I say, it's not in the plan, but things never go according to plan, and I've seen elsewhere where these open areas are converted to commercial use. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Yes, we do, and there is a drawing. We could meet at it afterwards, but we do point out the northern section of the property and the southern section, the wooded areas that you mentioned, are encumbered in an environmental easement. Now, all the restrictions and deeds and all that, that's something to be studied and make sure, but it is already managed by the Severn River Land Trust, similar to the Bacon Ridge site across 97. It's a very similar easement. It's all encumbered together. So your concern is noted, but what we wanted to make sure you were aware of the environmental easement, which is already encumbered. So we'll keep going through.
Hello, my name is Matt Zahn. I live on Fairfield Loop Road. I'm probably the closest or second closest resident to the circle that's going to go in. So Back in 2015, I wrote an article for the Capitol on Crownsville Hospital back in the CSCC study period, and then in 2019, again for the Bayhawks period, recommending the usage for the most adjacent property to my house. I am glad to see the county taking the role over for those alternatives, which were not a benefit to the community, not a benefit to the memory of the hospital, and in general, not a benefit to all the surrounding residents. I echo the concerns about traffic. There are times when I can't get out of the road, but I would argue that putting an entrance in from 97 should only serve the park, if at all. It should not be an alternate conduit for traffic from 97 or to 97 in case of the traffic surrounding in the area. I'm glad to see the park becoming a useful site for the community. I am glad to see the county taking the role in it, and I hope it doesn't turn into additional development, but the right for all of us to use the area as residents and taxpayers for the county. So thank you very much for taking that role on. It's been following it a long time, so I'm glad to see it going this way.
Good evening. My name's David Perry. I live just right up the road here, or down the road now from here. I've been in Anne Arundel County for almost 30 years now. I'm a retired trooper from the Maryland State Police and started working here in 1986, and I've seen the expansion and growth, especially with traffic and lack of infrastructure to support the growth in traffic. So while it is a concern for all of us getting in and out of our community, and I'm not opposed to this, I want to make that clear. However, I'm not seeing enough focus on how the infrastructure or lack of is going to support the additional traffic that's coming here. Not just the cars coming here, lack of place for police response, lack of place to move vehicles out of the road to get the road open again so traffic can continue. None of that stuff's addressed. Emergency response from ambulances, etc. I haven't seen any focus on those things to talk about how we're going to account for that. Throw in the Renaissance Festival, the Anne Arundel County Fairgrounds, along with any accident or any crash or collision that occurs on 50 or 97, we're overburdened right now. It's just like on the Eastern Shore, and I've worked in every region of the state where you have to have state highway vehicles block off the exits so that folks can communicate or get back and forth within their own community. And that's what ends up happening, because folks try to take a back road, which is already happening now, so that they can get around whatever's the diversion. There's just no place for it. We just had paving that took place on General's Highway, which affected traffic. Anything like that in the future that you have, there's just no place for you to put that traffic, and that's what I'm concerned about.
I think I'm it. Last person. I am Susan Klein. I'm here representing the Friends of Crownsville Hospital Cemetery, and I'm also here as a member of the Cultural Subcommittee. We are very, very interested in the process that's occurring with the registering of the hospital grounds in the National Register. We would like to have both the benefits and the possible problems with that addressed in the continuing transparent way that everything else has been handled to this point. Additionally, we are also very concerned about access to Farm Road and the cemetery being able to be protected, and the security aspects of this entire project. We're going to need trail cams, we're going to need monitoring of facilities. There's a lot to be considered ahead of the installation of any of these beautiful things. I don't know whether there's been accommodations made for security, but it's critical, critical, critical. This is going to be a nationwide thing that people are looking at. It's not just a little local community project. So it's important to keep that in mind.
We appreciate all the comments this evening. Anybody else like to make any additional or final comments? Okay. Come on up, sir. Do you want?
Again, I'm Glenn Wright, and my comments before were limited to the scope of the Crownsville Memorial area here. Okay, I'd like to extend that a little bit. Right now, this entire area is being considered for rezoning. And my question is, up and down General's Highway in the surrounding area, what are the chances that with this magnificent facility coming here at being an attraction for additional development of strip malls up and down General's Highway outside of the Crownsville Hospital area here? I want to make sure that that's not going to happen either. And again, if this area becomes just like a river road, we're all in trouble. I want to make sure that doesn't happen. Thank you.
Sorry, you thought you were done. My name is Chris Schwartz. I'm a county resident. This is beautiful, and the ties to history and telling the story, the unvarnished story of what's happened there, I think is a wonderful thing. I didn't hear much about cost tonight. I think I heard $30 million was initially granted by the Maryland General Assembly. I am curious, what are we looking at for an initial cost? And then I see the county logo on everything. Is this a project or a park that the county taxpayers are then responsible for caring for and funding in perpetuity? And so curious to what those estimates are, not just the construction, but the life caring for this beautiful park. Nice job on the design team.
Good evening, everyone. I'm a county resident. I've lived in Crownsville my whole life, so I've got 40 plus years. We live on Fairfield Loop Road. This impacts us directly and greatly. It's great to see the hospital being preserved and represented the way that it should. Both sets of my grandparents all worked there. We had Crownsville police, we had nurses. My grandmother worked in the mailroom, so this is close to my heart. What I'm not seeing in this program or in this plan, which I think is great, by the way, and I like the way that it's shaping up, I'm not seeing a timeline. Is this a year or 2 years, 10 years, 20 years? So a lot of the residents and a lot of people that are directly affected by this, we just want like a ballpark timeline, right? We've been promised the South Shore Trail and things like that for years and years and years, and there's constant delays. And we understand that there's funding, there's red tape, there's bureaucracy. We get it. But can you give us something? Give us some timeline, some frame once we get further along in this process. Let us know how we can help. A lot of these committees were floated, and I offered to volunteer time, and I didn't get a response. I've got stories, I've got photos, I've got family history. I would love to give that. So just leave this open to us, let us access, let us help, right? And we want to do as much of our part as we can. So great work. Everyone involved has been fantastic. We've been to all of these, events and community town halls, and I think the way that this is turning out is fantastic. So keep it up. Thank you.
I'm going to just give one last link in. I'm Tom Brandt. I've lived in Maryland all my life. I was a corporate financial guy, and I didn't want to be the party pooper talking about cost, but I couldn't resist once I got the door opened. I've chatted a little bit with the planners, and I love what I've seen and heard. I've driven past these old buildings many times over many years. In my retirement years, I've devoted a lot of time and effort towards dealing with old buildings, which I love. They are expensive as heck to maintain. And I loved the images and the proposed adaptive reuse. My input meant to be constructive is in deciding which ones to take on, be considering not just the cost to get them fixed up, but what economic rent will come from the adaptive reuse in order to pay for the heat, light, power, plumbing, maintenance that lie ahead. Maryland has some beautiful old buildings. The stories and the struggles of the not-for-profits keeping them nice are tough. So I offer that as a friendly bean counters, loving input to the process.
I was told I could wrap it up. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up then. And I do want to address a couple of things that were said in the last few comments. So on rezoning, you may have noticed that the county has been divided into 9 regions, and this region is coming up for comprehensive rezoning, but we don't do it the way we used to do, which is to just kind of have the staff make recommendations to the politicians, the county council, the county executive. We have a stakeholder advisory committee that goes through a process and makes recommendations. They work with the planning staff. I think if you look at the regions that have been done so far, the reason we created these stakeholder advisory committees is then the plan for any zoning, any rezoning, as well as visioning of the community is coming directly from the community right before the politicians get to do it. And it's a lot harder for the politicians, the county council and the county executive, that's me, to override the will of the people right when they've just given it to us and the people have given us a plan. So I would be shocked to see a plan come forth that would have a lot of upzoning of this area, certainly of commercialization of a highly trafficked area. We've made that mistake in this county before where we try to create a thoroughfare, a highway, and also a commercial district. It doesn't work. It's a disaster, and it's already, we have traffic problems. So everybody knows that. I think stay engaged, though, because that is how those decisions get made. Security has been brought up by a few people close to the end. I think many of you who live here know that there has been security. There was security here, hired security by the state. We have a contract for security that we took over, and yes, this will be a facility that the police department, and as it becomes a park, then it will have the security that other county parks have. Timelines and costs. The 2 things are not in this draft that are coming. One is, as Cecily said, there's going to be a more detailed traffic study that will go into the final plan. The other is cost estimates. And I'm told you will see is what things actually cost. So, per linear foot of trail and things like that. This is a plan, like we do plans for parks that often take many years. Sometimes they sit on the shelf for a decade before they even get touched. That's not going to be the case on this plan. But when you have a plan that is going to have a lot of partners participating in it, this is more the case here. So we don't see Anne Arundel County government rehabbing every single one of these buildings and covering the cost of it and taking responsibility. We see partners coming in, just like you would. They'll have to have long-term leases because we can't subdivide the land either without going to the Board of Public Works of the state and going through a whole process. But long-term leases, whether they're for-profit companies or nonprofit organizations, we absolutely can do. And so we expect these organizations to come in and fix up their building. We're not just going to hand them a rehab building in most cases. So the county won't have to, the county taxpayers won't have to do all of these super expensive rehabs. And then each one of these organizations, if they have a 99-year lease, they've got to do the ongoing costs too. They've got to operate, they've got to maintain it and all of that. So there will be a lot of partnerships that are involved in doing all this. In terms of timeline, it will go in stages. I mean, what you've seen is they've identified what they think are the low-hanging fruit, the things that can happen the soonest. In terms of buildings, but also the park, I think, is low-hanging fruit. I mean, they've already talked about, some of the mountain bike folks going out and doing some of the trails like ASAP. We got in there right away and started cleaning up. You've noticed around the buildings there's less stuff growing up, and that process has been going on gradually. But It will go in phases. It won't happen overnight, unfortunately. But I think the park part of it is probably the first part. And then in terms of where the money comes from, it has been amazing to see the, like we've brought our senators out here, we've brought our members of Congress out here, we've brought state level top electeds who control budgets, and they all get it right away, and they all want to be a part of it. And I think foundations are the same way. So it's going to be possible to raise a lot of outside money for this. And it's going to be coordinated through county government. It's going to be, we haven't even figured out quite what ultimately the organizing structure, the landlord will look like. Will it be a department of county government? Will it be within a department of county government? Or will we create some quasi nonprofit that oversees all of this? So this is, I mean, think about this as like, taking a whole neighborhood, a whole area. I mean, it is 70 buildings that we're talking about in 500 acres. But what's important is to get a plan with a vision that isn't housing development. It is park. It is a certain kind of a park. It's really a unique kind of a park. And I think because this, there will be some changes, of course, but this draft is so well done and so driven by community input that my hope is that future county executives and county councils will stick with the basic vision. The last thing I wanted to do is somebody came up to me with a note during some of the testimony suggesting that we read the equity statement that was done by the advisory committee. It was done fairly recently. Does anybody have a copy of that? I should have planned this, but I think our Office of Equity and Human Rights worked on this with the advisory committee, and it sort of just came across my desk to approve, and it was sort of striking in how thorough. Oh, there we go. Look at that. And now I have to put on my glasses. All right. Good Lord. People look at my phone and they say, my God, the letters are so big. And yeah, okay. All right, the Crownsville Hospital Memorial Park equity statement. Okay, now I did something that's making it hard to read the first line. There we go. So Anne Arundel County envisions an equitable and just world where acknowledgement and remediation for past harms anchor the vision of Crownsville Hospital Memorial Park. Quote, to honor and preserve, this is part of an executive order, to honor and preserve the history and legacy of the hospital and those who were institutionalized during its operation by creating a space where people can heal through the natural beauty of the site and access much needed resources and services. Anne Arundel County acknowledges the barbarous and unconscionable acts that were committed at Crownsville Hospital, formerly known as the Hospital for the Negro Insane of Maryland, against black descendants of slavery. These acts had a devastating impact on the overall health and well-being of the patients, their families, and the black community, which included a legacy of trauma and, for some, death. Anne Arundel County seeks to repair these harms by its stand against injustice and inequity and its commitment to reconciliation and restoration. And one of the suggestions that was made by somebody who came up was that the artists, the architects, the contracts for the work there, that we have a super aggressive effort to hire minority contractors, black contractors, descendants of slavery contractors. What? ADOS contractors. And I think that's right on, and that will be, driving us as we go forward. Yes.
Yes, I'm a member of the ad hoc committee that's been helping.
You're the one who gave me the note, right?
I'm Dan Toodle. I'm one of the people who've been working in the advisory committee, and we've been working on this equity statement that will govern how the Crownsville Hospital Memorial Park will move in an equitable manner. The statement that our county executive just read was the acknowledgement portion of the statement. There's two more pieces that are yet to be adopted by the advisory committee. One is a list of the commitments that are being made to have this be true. and also a statement of the tools that will be used to ensure that what happens at Crownsville is in fact equitable and strongly recognizes the descendant community of this county.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for being here, and we look forward. The comment period closes when? November
24th.
November 24th. Do you have any?
And comments to the email address, please.
Yeah, you can email, or you can just go to aacounty.org/Crownsville Park. You'll find it all.